All right, it's Thursday night. That means it's time for Legally Speaking with Jay Carter and Marissa George joining us once again. We're going to get right down to business. We're going to lay down the law. Tyra Banks in the headlines this week. Jay, tell us why.
So this week, Tyra Banks is in the headlines due to essentially having her America's Next Top Model show being brought to the forefront 25 years later. But what we thought were just like extreme competition scenes from her show that we used to gawk at, people are saying, no, this show has some legal issues, some legal troubles where contestants could have potentially sued for certain issues as it relates to their work environment, medical procedures that they had to go through. Even a girl actually said that she was sexually assaulted, and it was actually played into the storyline that it was a cheating scandal. So all the things that we watched 25 years ago that may appear to be entertaining because it was almost like this extreme show of like Survivor meets the real world in the modeling context, where you would essentially learn about what it took to be a model, which we know is a very tough industry. They're now pulling the curtains back and saying, no, these were real legal issues that were presented at the time that contestants would have had some legal claims for.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now it's time for Marissa to make the case of some of those legal claims that contestants could have made against Tyra and production and executive producers.
Yeah, so again, no lawsuit has been filed. There's no findings of liability at all. This is just purely legal analysis of potential claims that could be examined. So from a prosecution or a plaintiff perspective, the first potential issue could be a hostile work environment claim. So this involves allegations that a workplace became intimidating, was humiliating, or emotionally harmful. And there, the prosecution or plaintiff would look into repeated conduct or a pattern of behavior and not just like one isolated incident. And so they also would probably evaluate possible harassment claims. So workplace harassment claims can include repeated verbal or psychological treatment that interferes with someone's ability to work safely or professionally. So the key legal question there is whether the conduct was severe or pervasive enough to meet the legal threshold. And then another major area that they might look into would be failure to provide adequate security or a safe working environment. So if an individual, like Jay Carter mentioned, alleges being sexually assaulted during production, attorneys would want to examine whether reasonable safe measures were in place. Employers and production entities generally have a legal duty to provide a reasonable, safe workplace. And so this situation has turned, like, if the situation at work has turned into like a storyline or a public narrative, legal questions could arise depending on whether the individual's well-being was properly prioritized. And then one of the last potential claims would be emotional distress. So if someone alleges serious psychological harm caused by on-set conduct, attorneys might evaluate intentional or negligent infliction of emotional distress, depending on the facts. So again, legal analysis, but the key takeaway is that reality TV is still a workplace, and a traditional workplace has legal standards that apply here. So it'd be really interesting to see what actually happens.
Ooh.
Absolutely. And then in terms of making the case for Tyra and executive producers in response to that, again, no legal case obviously has been filed, but they would argue as it relates to hostile work environment and any harassment that they may have felt for doing certain extreme challenges or being in certain environments, that you signed up for this. You signed a model release that almost outside of like death, that, you know, and Marissa can probably speak to this. She's been on a reality show where she has to sign a release saying that, like, hey, if I accidentally fall off this cliff, my family can't sue you for wrongful death, right? So you do sign these really extreme waivers, and you also have to look at, it was 25 years ago. Like, they didn't really work out the complete kinks of what these type of reality shows were, and so they will lean heavy into, like, if you try to sue, is like you sign the release. I think the one that's probably the most troubling is the failure to provide a safe environment as it relates to the cheating scandal that model Shandy is saying was actually sexual assault, because she says that she wasn't aware of what was happening because she was essentially drunk. She was drinking, right? And those drinks were provided by producers. So she wasn't in her right mind to consent. She could have, I think, even back then, had a very strong argument that, like, hey, I'm a young girl, I'm overseas, you invite strangers into our filming house, you give me alcohol, where to the point where I'm not in my right mind so that I can't consent. I actually think she could have had an argument. At this point, probably all of their claims would be probably beyond the statute of limitations unless they use some sort of statutory exception. But it definitely is an interesting legal way of looking at America's Next Top Model, and what would have been acceptable then is certainly not acceptable now.
Yeah.
No, and it shouldn't be, I think, in any decade. So for me as the jury, I'm convicting if things are coming up, because I think we saw our Biggest Losers, not the same things, obviously, but a similar type of case. Yeah, I mean, the claims that have been made and some have been substantiated, and in my opinion, as a jurist, yeah, I'm going to convict them, all of them. Sorry.
Yeah, and I think the court of opinion is going to speak in this case as well. Obviously, everyone can watch that documentary about America's Next Top Model streaming now on Netflix. Guys, I'm so sorry to have to cut it short. Obviously, we had some technical issues tonight. We appreciate you guys for hanging with us, though. If people want to follow along for more, though, where can they go and do it?
Well, we are on YouTube. If you type in Legally Speaking TV show, it will come up, but the exact handle is youtube.com/@Legally Speaking Show. And obviously, I'm on Instagram at AskJCarter. I'm also the Entertainment Esquire. And Marissa, give them your Instagram handle and your docket show.
Yes, Rissa.George, and you can also find me on the docket on YouTube.
Awesome.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you
Thank
both.
you guys both
Thank
so
you.
much
Thank
for
you.
spending some time with us.